Yo, 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 what's up, guys? Welcome to a little Dynasty talk with Sam, SC, and then we got Cody here as well. We're going to go over some fun little KTC ADP chalk today. Let's have everyone introduce themselves. We're going to go Cody first and then SC.
Hey, I'm Cody Folden. I'm a writer at Dynasty Pros, and that intro always gets me riled up. I'm ready to go.
What up, guys? SC from Dynasty Pros as well. You can find some of my content on there with your YouTube channel, RPO. I did a 7-round mock for them. And then follow us, at Dynasty Pros on Twitter.
100%. And definitely always tune in. We got our little names here on the screen. And I'm with you, Cody. That video weirdly gets me pumped up. And I always have my headphones too loud. And it gets me every single time. So just for the listeners, real quick, what we're going to do is we're using a little KTC data. For those that don't use that, that's Keep Trade Cut. Basically, it is like a community-based aggregated rankings value site. Take it to mean what it is, but it's a good bias and little small judgment for those that just need like an eye in on what people are saying about players right now. So we're going to go position by position, some fun little groups, and I'm excited to get going. So first off, we got QBs, and we're going to throw these down on the screen so everyone watching can keep in tune a little better. We got Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud. Cody, you're on the clock. Who are you taking and why?
I'm taking Bryce Young. I'm not the biggest Kyler fan out there, and I think out of the two rookies, I would take Young just because of reasons. I think he's the best at the leadership aspect of it, which is the hardest thing to come by. Stats, you can argue that Stroud is probably a little bit better, but I like Young's creativity a little bit more.
Very interesting. SC, you're on the clock.
Man, I'm going with the other rookie quarterback. Kyler, if he didn't get injured last year, he might be the guy just because he has the experience. But on the flip side of what he was saying about Bryce, size matters to me. And being a little bit undersized at that quarterback position kind of pushes him down a little bit. And, Stroud can extend the play. He has great accuracy. And I'm excited to see what he does in the pros.
I think this is interesting that randomly we all are going to pick someone different when it comes to this question. And I think that, hats off to the KTC because these guys are very close. I'm going with Kyler Murray. And I think for me personally, I'm someone who likes to see it to believe it. And I've seen Kyler Murray be a top 10 QB in the NFL. But as we've covered, the injury and definitely the injury coming into this season is the downside, right? I would say, Kyler, no injury. Is he the slam pick here if he didn't get hurt? For
sure. I'm just saying, I think. But because you said that, we've seen it. We know he can be a top 10 quarterback. Right now, we're saying all upside, for Bryce and Stroud. We don't know what their floor necessarily is or what if they're a bust. They could be a bust. But right now, we're going off the upside to say, hey, they can be a top 10. At least I am, so.
Cody, I'm going to ask you a question here. What could happen in the draft next week that could change your mind to move from Bryce Young to Stroud or Kyler? Or is it all based on like the prospect model basically of your evaluation of Bryce Young?
That's a very good question. There's a few teams I can think of, like I would put Kyler and Stroud ahead of Young, but I don't think any of them that need quarterbacks, I would. If Young goes to the Panthers, to the Colts, to the Seahawks, any of those, even the Bucks, I like him in all of those spots. I think Stroud needs a little bit more coaching, and I think Young already has it. I think he's ready to go. And I do agree with like size matters, but he doesn't have an injury history right now. So obviously people get unlucky, but Tua had an injury history coming out. Kyler now has an injury history. Young doesn't. So I don't think that's kind of a fair assessment in that regard. But yeah, he's way more prone to, for sure. But I think Young is really good.
SC, same question to you. Anything in the draft next week that could change your mind?
Man, if Bryce goes 101, if he goes to the Panthers, like everyone's saying, it's happening now. Maybe, because I do like the Panthers, what they're doing with that organization. I feel they'll be able to build correctly around him. Whereas if it's like CJ and then Bryce goes to the Texans, I'm not really feeling that with the Texans. I don't feel he can go in there and necessarily elevate the Texans as we want him to. Again, that has to do with the size. And just because the Texans organization right now as a whole isn't the ideal spot for a quarterback. But, you go in there and again with that upside with Stroud, it's an assumption they go Stroud and then JSN. It's like, wow, they're just bringing them back from college, right? So if that happens for Bryce, it's kind of just like, that's not my favorite landing spot. So if he goes 101 to the Panthers, I love it. Colts would be awesome too because I love that receiving core. But if it's like Houston, I'm still off on him.
Okay, very cool. So that's the QB for the night. Now we're moving on to running back. And what we got coming up next at running back, we got a second-year guy and a couple guys tailing the end of their rookie contracts. We got J.K. Dobbins, Dameon Pierce, and DeAndre Swift. Cody, on the clock, who are you picking?
Dobbins.
Why?
I think Dameon Pierce is good complimentary back, and I think he's going to get another piece added on to that in the draft. Swift, I think if they would have believed in him, or if the Lions believed in him, they would have not signed David Montgomery. And Dobbins, I think he's the best in that backfield, and I don't think they take a running back. And coming off his injury, he was still really productive, even though he wasn't 100%. I think if we finally get a healthy J.K. Dobbins, I would pick him over the other two.
SC, what are you thinking?
I was obviously saying Dobbins as well on this one. Really just because the Texans and the Lions both went after a running back already in free agency, and now they might get one in the draft as well. But getting Singletary, it's not necessarily like a threat, but it's kind of going to be that nagging little brother in a sense, where it's like he's just going to feed into the Dameon Pierce's touches. And Swift, there was a brief second where it's like, okay, they believe in Swift, right? They got rid of Jamal Williams. He's not there. But then they went and signed David Montgomery, and not just to a 1 year like Singletary did in Houston. They signed him to a 3-year deal. So I think that will definitely hurt where Dobbins right now, there's no one there to fight him for any touches. You have Gus Edwards, I guess, Justice Hill maybe. But it's still, if he's healthy, Dobbins is still a great back. So I'll buy into him.
Yeah, I'm going to finish that off with the sweep. I'm going Dobbins too. Now, in Pearson Swift's defense or whatever, Dobbins is the highest ranked guy on KTC if we're going down the list. But I'm fully with you. I think Dobbins is the best talent. Number one, I think he's the best player on this list. Number two, I think he's in the best situation, seeing as they haven't added anyone yet. Gus Edwards is a fine 2, but no one's afraid of Gus Edwards being the 1A and really stealing it. And right. I think something too that is really, I think at this time in the offseason, it's not being talked about. And I think this summer it's going to really start to be talked about is Monken coming in as the OC in Baltimore. I think all of his statistics from whether it's Georgia back to his time on Tampa, that team is going to pass more. And that's the one thing that under Greg Roman, I felt Dobbins was missing, is that he just wasn't getting those free PPR points. We all knew he was an incredible runner, and the dude was breaking 50-yard runs with a bad knee. But you add in 2-3 catches, and if Dobbins finishes as RB9 next year, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not drafting him there, but it's definitely possible.
And you saw it in Ohio State when Dobbins was there. He can catch. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Very cool. On to the next position. We're going to move on to wide receiver. And at wide receiver, we got a fun one of 3 veterans, slightly different ages, but I think this is a really good one of a kind of choose your veteran receiver. We have Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, and Amari Cooper. Cody, you're up.
This is the hardest one of the bunch, I feel, and I'm going to take Ridley because ever since he's come out, I still think he's one of the best route runners in the game. His footwork is impeccable, and I don't think that is going to change even with the 1-year suspension and everything like that. He's put up a 1,400-yard season already. Cooper is consistent, but I just don't want that. I want more of the flash. I think Ridley is that. Deontay has to deal with Pickens and now maybe Allen Robinson. I think that's just more of a leadership thing than anything. But I also really like Deontay Johnson, but I want the flyer, the high flyer, and I think that's Calvin Ridley.
SC, what are you thinking?
I'm actually going Cooper here. You know, I think we're going to get a 4-year with Deshaun Watson. He knows what it takes to feed a wide receiver one. You hit it right on the nail. Cooper is not flashy at any means necessary, but he gets the job done, and he's been a top 10 receiver. He knows what it takes. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore isn't going to do anything there. Plus, we don't know if Kareem Hunt is there, so that's not necessarily a threat from the backfield with just Nick Chubb. So I really like what Deshaun Watson could do. I do love Ridley a lot, but you got to think that's a lot of targets there, where it's Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, even Evan Ingram, who, you know, they signed again. Even Etienne, you know, that's a pass-catching back. So just a lot of competition there. Deontay, man, he had a lot of targets last year, but he had no touchdowns, and that kind of scares me. I don't think he'll go no touchdowns again, but with Kenny Pickett at the helm, I just don't know what to expect. He's still someone on my radar to target, but out of these three, I think I go Amari Cooper, and that just goes because I think he's the unquestioned one on his team with Deshaun Watson there.
I think for me, I'm actually going to, once again, I'm going to pick the one that nobody's chosen, and I think I'm going with Deontay. Now, I do think that these three guys is a very interesting, if I was in a win now team, I think I would go with Amari Cooper. I do think Cooper has a chance to really blow up next year, even though honestly he blew up last year. It's just people didn't respect it because Brissett was the QB. You know, I think they didn't think of it as a blow up, but like, you know, he was a top 15 guy, and until Watson came in there, he actually had better numbers than even after Watson came in. But I think with Deontay, what I want to get at is his route running is so safe. You know, he obviously gets open, and I think you just got to cross your fingers that the regression will hit in the other direction, and you got to hope that happens. But Pickens is definitely a worry. I tend to think Pickett is going to improve, but you can tell he really liked Pickens in the red zone last year and even in some of those clutch plays. But I just tend to think Deontay's the safest option, but it wouldn't surprise me if Ridley or Cooper outscored him next year. I just think for the next 3 years, Deontay's the guy I want on my team. But I totally see the argument, and you know, it's not a coincidence these guys are very close together when it comes to ADP and KTC.
I'd rather Deontay get like 30 less targets, but like 5 or 6 touchdowns this upcoming season. You know, like you don't have to feed him. Just get him in the end zone because he'll do the rest. He'll get the yards, he'll get the catches. Just get him in the end zone, and then it could be a different story.
It's almost like they just don't even give him the right routes to run in the red zone.
Right.
You watch that, and I will say, though, last year, Deontay had like 7 touchdowns called back, whether it was like barely an incompletion or he dropped it or like some sort of holding penalty.
Right.
But I would want all 3 of these guys on my team, if I'm being honest. I have traded – I did technically trade away Ridley, but it was in a rebuild team. And, you know, when you can get a first, I think you take it. But moving on to the next position – this is going to be a fun one. I think it's fun to throw tight ends in here where, you know, tight end doesn't get talked about enough, I think, in the Dynasty sense, past the top tier guys. But what we're going to do now is 3 vets, slightly different ages, but still outside of that top tier, the Kelseys, the Pitts, Hawk, Andrews. But we have Darren Waller, Evan Ingram, and Dalton Schultz. 2 guys on new teams and 1 guy who signed another deal to stay with the Jags. Cody, you're on the clock. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Darren Waller, and I'm taking that strictly in the fact of I think he's obvious. He's not obvious, I guess, but he's better than Bellinger is right now, and I think he's a guy that Daniel Jones never has had. I think Daniel Jones might have his best season yet because he has a Waller on his team. I want to see what Waller can do with the New York Giants. I know what you're going to get with Ingram. on Jacksonville, and that even might be a little bit of a regression, kind of like what you just talked about last time, SC, right? You have Christian Kirk, you have ETN, you have Zay Jones, and now you have Calvin Ridley. So there might be just a little bit of a regression there. And then in Schultz's case, I mean, I think out of these three, he's definitely the third choice for me. And that's just because he's on Houston. And we don't know what they're going to do. If the rumors are true and they just don't go quarterback at 2, which I don't think is true, but if they do and they roll out Davis Mills, yeah, Schultz is definitely the 3 on this. So,
SC, you're on the clock. Who are you going with?
Man, this one was honestly the hardest one for me because it's like on the clock, man. I'm probably passing and getting a different player on the side. I'll say Dalton Schultz. I do like Waller. The injury scares there, though, so that's why I would pass on him. But he's arguably the receiving option 1 for Daniel Jones. Evan Ingram, he was great last year, but with Calvin Ridley coming back, he's going to be the one that loses the targets, out of that whole receiving core. So Dalton Schultz, I like him. And it's because DeMeco Ryans is coming in from San Francisco. He worked in the offense that utilized the tight end with George Kittle. So Dalton Schultz by any means is not George Kittle, but we might see that same kind of utilization for the tight end position. So he might be flooded with some targets. And if you get a rookie quarterback in, sometimes that tight end is your safety net. So we might see that upside, at least in this season, for him. So I would take Dalton Schultz and then capitalize on it. Hopefully he has a big season and possibly trade him down the road.
Very good. I think I'm going to agree with Cody on this one, and I'm going Darren Waller. I think what it came down to is it's a ceiling versus safety question to me, right? And I think Darren Waller has the upside to be a top 3, top 4 guy, but he could also get hurt again, flame out, and give you absolutely nothing. But I think what I've found successful in a dynasty landscape is if you don't have one of those top 3 tight ends, it almost doesn't even matter which guy you have. Now, I definitely think everything you guys have said. I think Ingram's going to lose targets. I don't mind having him as my tight end 2. He's a good, upside play. He can break a play. He's obviously a very athletic tight end. And I definitely think Schultz is being hated on a little too much. So I'm with you there, SC. I think, we all know Schultz isn't some dynamic playmaker, but he could have 100 targets next year, man. Who else are they going to throw the ball to? At some point, that team is going to be super bad. And, even look last year, yes, all their targets were spread out between probably 7 tight ends that no one could name all of. And I would hats off if you can name all the Texans tight ends that caught touchdowns last year. Because it was Akins. What was the one dude? Not Tarantino. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always wanted to call him Quentin Tarantino. But, God, it was just funny. But I think Schultz could get some easy catches, and that's where he lived with Dallas. Let's not forget, he wasn't running 30-yard seam routes. He was running 5 to 10-yard little option routes, and Dak was just dumping the ball off to him. So I'm with you guys. I think that's a fun one. And I got to say, man, I love tight end. I've always been a tight end fan in Dynasty because it really allows you to pivot and choose your strategy, right? Are you going for a tight end or are you not going for a tight end? So we got one more fun position battle, and then we have a little throw in that we've had someone comment, and we're going to do that after our last one. So just to kind of end the video, we have a multi-position KTC ADP little challenge here. So on KTC, I checked earlier today, and these 3 players are back to back to back. We have Derrick Henry, Russell Wilson, and Quentin Johnston. Now, this is a super flex league, as we're assuming, because otherwise Russell Wilson does not belong in this tier. But super flex, I just want to hear where you guys are at. You can come at this from a rebuild, a win now. I don't really care. I just want to hear what you think about these guys. And is this a correct value of them, or do you think someone's overvalued, undervalued? What are we thinking, Cody?
In this regard, I think if it's super flex rankings, I think Russell Wilson is underrated and Quentin Johnston is overrated. And in that regard, I'm going to take Derrick Henry. in that regard, it's more of I probably have a QB1 that I want, and I'll probably try to get my super flex QB. I would much rather try to take a flyer, maybe even like an AR more than Russell Wilson at this point. And I might do that in later rounds than that. Quentin Johnston, it's going to be based off fit, but at this point, I probably have better ones, and I'm definitely not taking him in this spot if those three were on the board. Derrick Henry, I'm going to take him because I know what Derrick Henry is. And in your regard, like I've seen it. I know what Derrick Henry is. He might be getting old and up there, but I know what he's going to give me, and I'm going to take that. Because running back is always the hardest position, even in fantasy. I mean, because of committees and stuff, Henry's the RB1, so I'm going to take that every time.
SC, what are you thinking about this multi-position one?
Man, I mean, going off of what he said, I might go Henry too, because if you think about the rounds here, we're probably past right at round 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 in this area where we're getting these guys. And so where he said on Russell Wilson, as much as I would love that, I'm assuming I have my QB1. Russell Wilson would be great, but I'm not mad about going further down and getting like a Ritter or a Jordan Love at that point. And then Quentin Johnston's great, but I think he's being overvalued here, as he said, because it's just – it would have to be a great landing spot. If he's going to Kansas City or the Chargers, I'm taking Quentin Johnston all day. But if he's going to Baltimore, like New England, then I'm like staying away from him. Where Henry, if we're in these, 6, 7, 8 rounds and Henry's still there on the board for him, that's a smash RB1 for you, So you could already have like a Nick Chubb or even like a CMC if you went early, or JT if you went early for running back. And now you're pairing that with the Derrick Henry. I think that's just a great, phenomenal duo to go what he said, just a workhorse back. Are the wheels falling off? Derrick Henry's not human. He's a machine. And so the tires aren't falling off for him anytime soon. He's going to continue to get that work. He's just a strong body, and he's someone that if he's there late for you, you have to take him. So I'm going Derrick Henry.
And to piggyback off that right before you go, Sam.
You're good, man.
It's more of a last year, this was the smash pick with Josh Jacobs. So if you're getting this value for Derrick Henry, I'm taking Derrick Henry every time.
Yeah, I think this was it's a fun one. I'm glad you guys have had fun reading this one, because I thought a multi-position one would be fun, and maybe we can do this a little more multi-positional next time, because I do think when you look at it, like you go in your mind, you go startup draft, right? I'm on the clock, startup draft, who am I taking? And before I say my answer, which is actually different than what you guys said, I do think the Henry one really brings up a super good point, which is like, if you're at round 6, round 7 in your startup draft, and you have seen, you have your team, right? Let's say you went Lamar, wide receiver, you got a running back, couple more wide receivers, and then a tight end or something, and you're coming back around here in round 6, round 7, and you're like, Derrick Henry, dude, I'm just going to go try and win it. Why not? Because that's the logic. I mean, you could have an entire young base of a team and add Derrick Henry on here, go for it for a year or two, and then probably still have a pretty solid team. Lamar, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, throw a tight end in there, throw another, exactly, Nick Chubb, whatever. But with that being said, I think Superflex, I just got to go Russell Wilson. I am an absolute QB hoarder when it comes to Superflex leagues, man. I might just change my freaking Twitter to just Sam the QB hoarder, because I will scoop up every quarterback. I am just known to be the dude in the first round of rookie drafts to take, I'm sitting on Herbert, Lamar, Pickett, Danny Dimes in one of my leagues. And I'm just like, I don't got to trade these dudes, man. 4 quarterbacks is freaking awesome to have. Unless you come at me with a good offer, like, I'm good. And I think just Russell, I don't love what I saw last year, but I think Russell is similar to Henry, where it's like, it's a very hard position to get a top 10, top 12 finish at. And if you're telling me I can get 3 to 4 more years out of Russell, I think I'll take it. But team build has so much to do with this one, because just like you guys said with QJ, man, it's like, I'm not a big QJ fan, but dude, you put that dude on the Chargers and I might just pull the trigger, because he only needs to run streaks. and just let Herbert chuck that ball to him. But so it was a fun one. We're going to go over next. We got a couple commented into us. This is going to be a fun one if we could get it up on the screen below. So this is from Bob Miller, obviously the Dynasty Pros master, the owner himself. We got Trevor Lawrence, Lamar, or Justin Fields. This is first round startup. These are big name guys. Cody, let's be quicker on these ones, but who are you taking, Lawrence, Lamar, or Fields?
I'm taking Trevor Lawrence because I know what I'm going to get. Lamar has had some injury issues, and so has Fields. They do have more rushing upside, but Trevor Lawrence obviously has rushing TD upside, and that's what I would be going for with him. He's shown that he can do that, and he's the best passer out of those three, in my opinion.
SC?
Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the receiving room, he just has the best receiving room there. Fields has that upside, but it's kind of like in a rebuilding process in Chicago. So we're kind of going to see a different Justin Fields. Lamar, man, Lamar's just off my radars right now. We just don't know what to expect from him. So I'll take Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm going Lawrence too. I just think you're adding Ridley to that room, and I just think Lawrence still has another gear that we might see even going into year 3, man. He took the step from year 1 to year 2. I think we might see it again year 2 to year 3. And I honestly would have them ranked in that order, Lawrence, Lamar, Fields. I really like Fields, but I think we're hoping that Justin Fields is as talented as Lamar is. Lamar's got this weird stuff, but if that dude steps on the field again, we know what Lamar is. And that's a fun one. Now we're just going to go over a couple more comments requested by some people. We're just going to go down the list. We're going to go these quickly. CeeDee Lamb or Hollywood Brown in 1-6. Superflex League. Another comment from Bob here. Cody?
I would take the Hollywood Brown in 1.06 because if Hopkins gets traded, Brown is the obvious choice. I might not get instant value with him with Colt McCoy maybe at the helm, but he's still a good option. And the 1.06, I can get something to help build that team and counter it from Lamb, whether that's a wide receiver or even one of the deep running back classes. I'm going to take that every day.
SC?
Same thing, Hollywood at 106 and Superflex at 4 QBs go in the first round. They're going to be, top 5 picks with Bijan. So you're getting JSN or Gibbs there, and I'll take both of those over CD with Hollywood included.
I think I'm going the opposite side of this, and I think what I'm learning is that us three should all be in a league together because we would make great trades together to make both of our teams better. Dude, CeeDee Lamb is just so freaking good, man. And I think this is a good trade, though. I think if you have CeeDee Lamb, being able to get, like you guys said, whether it's one of those top 4 QBs or maybe one of the QBs even slips, right? And you get AR and Hollywood, and you're replacing your wide receiver 1 with a wide receiver 2 and the upside of potentially a QB 1. I just think CeeDee Lamb's so good, man. And I have him as a top, I don't see a reason he's not wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. For me, that's where I have him. Him, AJ Brown, right after Jefferson and Chase. But that's a good trade, and that's a fun one.
If you're in like a win now, I would keep CD. Because I think he gives you the better option. But if you're like on the fence of winning now, then I would make that trade for sure.
Yeah, if you're like 6th or something, and you just need a few more pieces. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Especially if you are down. I think we've all been in this situation where whether it's a rebuild or, I've taken over a couple orphans. I really love doing that. It's super fun. And when you don't have QBs and orphans, man, you get put in positions that this is hard. And this gives you a QB or a shot at a QB with that 1-6. And it doesn't decimate your wide receiver room because at least you're getting Hollywood, who's probably, moving forward. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 guy, but if he was wide receiver, 15, 16 in there, I see it happening. We got one more comment, and then we're going to wrap the show up after that. This is more just a fun one. I'm sure these are, 2 later guys. We have a vet and just a super fresh rookie. So we got Mike Gesicki or Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Cody.
I'm probably going to take Darnell Washington in this regard just because I can see him replacing Gesicki. And I know what we've seen in Gesicki, but Darnell Washington is going to get on the field year 1 because of his blocking. and that's going to result in red zone touchdowns. Just how it usually works out. He might have 10 receptions, but he'll have 3 touchdowns, and that might make the point totals pretty even at the end of the year.
SC, what are you thinking?
I'm going Darnell too. I mean, Gesicki is in the right situation. If you want him in any position, it's where he's at in New England, because Belichick can use 2 tight ends and make them useful, both of them. But Darnell Washington has the athleticism over Gesicki, so I'll definitely take him at that upside. And he's obviously my tight end 1 for the rookies this year. So I'm going Darnell Washington.
Yeah, this is an interesting one in, That Good Sports. Thanks for throwing this down. I think I'm going Gesicki, and I think this is a tough one. Age definitely plays into this answer, but I just think with Gesicki, I think I'm going to give him 1 more year, and I'm going to scratch last year off as just wrong situation. He didn't get the targets, wrong scheme, whatever you want to say. I'm just trying to forget about last year with Gesicki. I think 2 years ago, Gesicki was a hot name, and I think people wanted him, and if he can get some of that back, I don't ever think he's going to be a top 5 tight end. I just have concerns that Washington is a risky pick, but he's got the upside. Could he be just an absolute monster and turn into Jimmy Graham? Probably not, but that's what you're hoping, right? You're hoping you get this big body who catches a ton of touchdowns. But then on the flip side of that, I just see, is he just Donald Parham, who's a great, he can catch a couple touchdowns. He's a tall guy. I mean, good for an NFL team. But the one thing Washington does have going for him is that hopeful blocking ability. Now, we've all seen the clip of him on the fake guy. Let's see him do it in a real game.
Right.
But, so what do you guys – yeah, go for it. Finish it up, man.
No, I was saying, would you take Kincaid or Mayer over Gesicki then?
I would take Kincaid. I think I'm on the Kincaid bandwagon, if I'm honest, on my rookie tight ends. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a rookie draft yet. I got one coming in a couple weeks, so I haven't done my final rankings to sit down. But I would take Kincaid over Gesicki. So from your standpoint, rookie tight end 1 over Gesicki, I agree with that. It just depends on who your rookie tight end 1 is. Right.
Sure. That's fair.
So, well, thank you guys for joining. Cody, SC, thanks for popping on. I had a bunch of fun. It was fun talking about some guys. I definitely think this is something we should do again. So if anyone's watching this on Twitter, YouTube, feel free to leave some stuff down in the comments, and maybe we can put those little ADP battles into our next video and talk about them. I think this is just such a great exercise to get into the mind of how different people think, and maybe sometimes to not necessarily change your own mind, but to see it from another owner's view, that whether you're trading with that owner or just trying to see how other people in your league are viewing players, I think it's a great exercise. So, Cody, one last note, and then SCU after Cody.
Thanks for hosting, Sam. It was a great time, like always.
Yeah, man, I appreciate being on here. To comment on something you said earlier, if we're in a league together, we just did join a league together, sleeping the bread out soon, campus to Canton. But that'll be fun because we have some heavy hitters in there. But yeah, man, appreciate you hosting and excited for the next episode already.
Sweet. We appreciate it, man. I'm taking Darnell Washington before SC just to trade him to him. So
I'll make the trade.
Good. Awesome. But thanks for joining, guys. And that is the show for the night.